Welcome back to your D121, W1 for Fall 2020. This is our second hands-on assignment, the Warren logo, WCCC logo that we're working on in Gravit, and we're going to finish this up here. We're just going to approximate some text. This isn't even the right font that I'm looking at, so even if we don't get it correct, that's okay. We're just going to approximate something so we have vector artwork. And the idea is to have vector artwork because, remember, raster artwork doesn't look very good when we scale it. Plus, we can't adjust the background. We can't adjust the colors. So if they ever use this logo in front of something that has a dark background, it would have a gray box, or sometimes they have a white box. I've seen student catalogs that they have like black ink on the back and then they have it in a white box, and you don't want to do that. You want to be able to change this. That's the nice thing about vector. It can be transparent and you can change the colors very easy. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm just going to zoom in the best I can. So I'm just focusing on this part right here, the Warren and then the County Community College. And I'm going to stick with pretty much the same font, the Open Sans, even though it won't match perfectly. I'm going to go to my text tool here and I'll click and I'll just type in Warren just as it is. And then I'll click on my pointer. Now if I click off, it actually gets selected. It still stays selected, which is nice. And so I don't have to like click off and click on. In some ways it's easier than Illustrator. In other ways I'm not used to it. So I'm not used to having it be selected when I click off. And instead of regular, I'm going to use bold. Now we used extra bold for the W's over here. I'm just going to use bold. And again, if you try and scale it, it won't scale the text, although you can make the point size bigger. So I could do something like that. Now be careful, don't grab this, because if you want to make the point size bigger and have this box expand, just adjust the point size. Don't grab these corners yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my Warren kind of up in the upper corner so it lines up there, and then I'm just going to increase the point size to get it kind of close. Kind of, that's pretty close. And I'll move it up a little, and that's pretty darn close. And I'm not going to mess with the tracking I right now. Like I said, that's the spacing in between the letters here. I'm not going to mess with that right now. You can see there's a little less spacing here. That's something called kerning, which we'll deal with later on down the road. But right now, I'm just going to try to match it up the best I can. And what I'll do, like we did on the other one, is I'm going to take it out of being a font. And right away, I could go right here and say, convert to path. And now I could kind of stretch this and do things with it that I can't always do with text. So I'm going to stretch it like that. I'm going to bring this in a little, make sure it's lined up on the corner there. And you can see that the spacing is a little bit different on here, but that's okay. And that's all I need for that. That's fine. Even though you can see the A, the way the top of the A comes down, it's a little bit different. The E is a little bit different. It's not exactly the same font, but it's close. And I'll do one more. And actually, before I do that, it called it Compound Path. I'm just going to change this name and call it Warren. So that way I know what it is in my layer palette. So now I'm going to use my text tool. I'm going to click here and type Community College or County Community College. And remember, if you click off, it stays selected. And I'll do the same thing. I'll make sure it's bold. And I'll even drag it down here and put it kind of at the top of the letters. And I have to move the whole box up a little bit. And then I'll increase the point size by going over here and dragging up. And it goes real fast, so I'll try to get it close. And now it's the same width right now, and I'll zoom in a little bit if I can. It's the same width, but you can see it's more of a condensed font, so we're just going to stretch it. And you can see the G's different, stuff like that. So we're just going to stretch it right now. But in order to do that, we're going to convert it to a path. So make sure we convert it to a path. See, it's no longer text, now it's a compound path. And I'm just going to call this CCC over here so I know what that is. And I'll just stretch it. I'll grab these handles down here and stretch out the Y. And now don't grab this thing, that rotates it, and you don't want to start doing that. Make sure you grab on the bottom one here and just stretch it up a little. And that's pretty good. Again, it's not perfect. You can see that the letter spacing is different, but that's pretty good. I could even bring this in a little bit more so it lines a little bit under the C. Even if that's going over, I think that looks a little better. And here, make sure this doesn't go past the N. And that looks pretty good. So if you took the other one away, you really wouldn't notice it. I don't think anybody would look at it and notice it. Probably wouldn't even notice the curl G down there. Like I said, people don't notice the website that's not really our font. If you look at the real logo, that's not it. So we don't use that font. All right, so we have our logo done. And if you want to see how it looks, you can actually turn off the web logo. So I'll turn it off, and that's what it looks like. So that's pretty good. And I could group this whole thing if I want to. If I wanted to group this, I could highlight the whole thing. And notice, because I have this turned on and locked, it's not going to highlight that. It's not going to group it. So I'm going to group this whole logo. And remember, this is the group thing here. And if you're ever not sure, go to modify, because that's where you do some of those operations. So I'm going to group it and just hover over this stuff and get to know them a little bit. I'll group it. So there it is. So everything's grouped. And then I could even call my group WCCC logo, and I'll put on white because the way it should look on white. And I'll do that. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're going to make one that appears on black. Now, what I'm going to do is click on this bottom logo here, or this bottom layer, because I want this underneath everything. So I'm going to click here if I can. I don't know if it'll let me because it's locked. I'll leave it the way it is. I'll just see what happens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle down here and make it bigger than the logo. And I'm going to make it black. And we're just doing this. Keep in mind, we're only doing this to see what it looks like on a background. We wouldn't really make the logo have a black background. The only reason we're doing this is because if we make the letters white, we're not going to see it on our page. And actually, one thing just to point out that you can do here, if I click off my page and I go up here to page and I go to color, it's showing the background of the page is white. If I want to turn this down, I could put it down to 0 if I want. And that way it's kind of transparent. Now this obviously stayed black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this logo. You could drag copy it, whatever you want to do. Before I do that, if you notice, this logo is below that black rectangle. And I could call this black rectangle just so I know. Now that's above it. So if I drag it here, it's going to be below it. If I make a copy, it'll be below it. So what I'll do first is make sure I just grab this layer and move it below, put it in between so it's below. So then when I copy this or I duplicate this, it'll stay above that. Because we want to have a logo that has white lettering on a black background. Makes sense? Okay, so I'm going to do a Command D or Control D on Windows. And there it is. And that's the one I have right now. So I'm going to move it down here. Now, since I know that's the one I have down here, I'm going to change this name to be on black. So I know it's on the black. And I might even move it down just because it's the bottom one. So I might move it down in the order in the layer palette. So the one on white is on top and the one on black is on the bottom. Now, obviously you can't see it, but if you hover over this stuff, I can hover over and click on County Community College and make it white. How easy is that? And hover over this and click on it and make that white. And hover over the box, that little black rectangle, hover over that and make that white. And now suddenly I have a logo that works on a black background. It works on, if you had a photograph or something, you could put a drop shadow, all kinds of things you could do with it. You could then export this as a PDF and use either one. Now, again, we'll get more into the file formats and all that later, but I will ask you to download it and upload it to my Warren just to practice that. But you can keep it in this format right now. But if we export it as a PDF, you could put it in a Word file, you could put in different things, and you can even open it up in Illustrator and all the paths will be read in Illustrator. So this isn't something you can't use somewhere else. You could use this in Illustrator. All right, so what I'm going to do now, this is pretty much our finished product of what we did. And as long as your web logo is turned off, you don't have to worry about it right now. I'm going to save what I did. So the last part of this is going to be sharing it and uploading it. So let's do those two things right now. I'm going to share it and copy the link and go back to my Warren, look for the assignment. Now I opened this up temporarily, so don't anybody do it yet because I didn't post it yet. And I'm going to click on here and I'm going to add a comment and add a link and paste my link. That's that share that I just copied, and always target it to new window, and I'll hit OK. And then I'm going to do something else. I'm going to hit my return key just one time, and I'm going to leave this open. I mean, I could save it because I can edit it, but I'm going to leave this open, and I'm going to go back to Gravit, and I'll close this, and I'm going to export it as a PDF. I'll say File, Export, and PDF document, and just use the highest setting. You could use the 150 DPI. You don't need the 300. That's fine. It's all vector, so it's fine. So we're going to export it as a PDF document. So File, Export. And this will be a separate thing. So two things. We're sharing it, and we're also going to be uploading a file, but we're not going to use the upload button like we've used. I'll show you what to do in a second. So I'm going to download it. What happens when you export it? It just goes into your downloads. And there it is right there. Now, don't double click on it because it'll just try and open it up in a tab or something. Although you can. If you double clicked on it, you can look at it and go, oh, look how nice that is. And there it is. Now, you could download it from here, whatever you want, but it's in your downloads. So you don't really have to look at it. But what you want to do is go back to my Warren. And right here, I'm still in this add a comment thing because I hate using the upload thing. I think that's such a pain. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put it right in here after the link. So make sure you hit your return key or your enter key. And then we're going to insert, I think, a file, because it treats PDF as a file, not as a graphic, not as a JPEG or a PNG. So I wasn't sure what it would do. So we're going to say insert file. So that first way is not the way you're going to do it. You're going to say insert file. And I'm going to have to hit upload. And there it is. It's in my downloads. I'm looking here. I'm going to my downloads. So whether you're on Mac or Windows, you want to go to your downloads. And you want to go find it. And there it is. That's the one I did. And I'll hit open. And then I'll hit insert. We'll see if this works. And then there should be a link to the file. So I could click on both your Gravit file and a PDF and see a finished PDF. So if I hit save. So let's just see if this works. So this is mine. So if I click on this, it should open a PDF in a new window. Oh, and look what I forgot to do. If you ever forget to do that, see, this is why I tell you to open a new window. This is a pain. I'm going to edit this. And I'm going to click on this link here. Now, and it didn't give me a link. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to make sure it says new window. That's why it's sometimes a pain. That's why I tell you to do that, but I forgot to do it there. So I'll hit OK, and then I'll hit save. And now it should open in a new window, hopefully. And there it is. There's my PDF. So two things I'm going to see. I'm going to see your PDF file that you exported from Gravit, and I'm going to see your original file that you completed in Gravit, and that's it. So that's going to be your assignment for 2, exercise 2, your WCCC logo. And basically, again, what we did is we started with a raster graphic and we converted it into a vector graphic by approximating things here. We didn't match it perfectly. We didn't use the font perfectly. We didn't mess with the anchor points that much, but we will. This is just a little start here, and it also shows how you can make a logo more flexible. So if you ever need to have white lettering and black lettering. Now, you wouldn't keep it in the same document. You'd make a PDF that has the black lettering one, and you'd have a PDF that has the white lettering. And when you save the PDF, you wouldn't save it with the black background because then you could put it in front of something. But if you had to do that, we'll do all that in the future. But just for now, that's just a little intro of doing that in Gravit. So that's our exercise 2, our WCCC logo exported as a PDF and then also shared both as a comment in my Warren.